Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ad Work Not Worries podcast, #1 podcast in the U.S., and we're excited you're here. When I say #1 podcast in the U.S., we are #1 in the category of me in this gray wool cardigan, black frame glasses, cream hat, black bill. Podcast with those credentials. We actually are #1 in the U.S., and we're very proud of it. And we're very thankful for all of our listeners. So anybody who's listened and got anything from the podcast, thank you. If you have received valuable information from the podcast or any tidbit of information that has been useful to you, it would really help us to jump the ranks if you could please go on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever your platform is. If you're listening on YouTube, give us a rating. If you can shoot us 5 stars, and you can give us a little comment to go with it. The comments are very, very important. Rating, comment. The algorithm loves that, and it helps us jump rank. We would greatly appreciate it. It would be very helpful to us. We would appreciate it. Now, there's an odd thing that these platforms do. They also allow you to give less than 5 stars, 4, 3, 2, 1. But I've been told that it's bad luck to give anything less than 5 stars. I don't know. It's an old, legend out there that if you give 1 to 4 stars to any podcast on Apple or Spotify, that it's just supposed to be 7 days of bad luck. And this legend goes back decades, maybe hundreds of years. They had this legend regarding rating podcasts with less than 5 stars hundreds of years ago when podcasts weren't even a figment of anyone's imagination, which probably makes it true. So if it's anything less than 5 stars, be careful. But 5 stars, please rate, review. We'd really appreciate it. It would really help us. Okay, today, Free Flow Friday. Friday. This is the podcast where it's off the top of the head. There's nothing pre-planned. It's typically me shooting 16 bars, free form, and seeing where that goes. I want to discuss 3 points that came to the top of my head this morning. I sat down here for a minute with a sticky note and started to just free flow some thoughts. And something struck me. And what struck me was the idea that there's a lot of you out there, maybe in the trades. Maybe you're a journeyman. Maybe you're not. Maybe you have a business background. Maybe you're completely detached from the trades and want to jump in, or the real estate game and want to jump into that. There's some guiding principles that I follow that have really helped me to take the step, to simplify things, and to get started. I wanted to highlight those, and I think they'd be helpful to anybody listening who's wanting to make that first crucial step and beyond. Again, whether it be into the construction trades, into house flipping, real estate development, whatever that vein may be. These are some of my key guiding light principles. I think they'll be really, really helpful. Quickly, before I get into these 3 key items, I'm going to be doing a real estate investment series that's going to track the process of real estate investment, whether you are a newcomer with zero experience in the trades, or you're in the trades looking to parlay into flipping development, building real estate to sale, or maybe you're looking to do land development or be part of the finance structure. I'm going to do a real estate investment series that's going to follow all that and discuss real estate investment from every angle That's going to be something I'm dropping this first quarter of this year. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be available to everybody free. This isn't some course online that I'm trying to sell. It is just my painful experiences, my happy experiences that I've experienced in real estate investment and in the trades. And yeah, following that from point A to point Z, showing you how you can start, how you can acquire properties, or get into the initial stages of real estate investment with whether you have capital, whether you don't have capital. Once you acquire, where you go from there, how do you then plan on what you're going to do once you acquire the property. Once you plan on what you're going to do, how do you go find financing, and what does that financing structure look like? Then once you start the build or the development, whatever it is you're doing, what do you do then, and what angles can you take to maximize profitability? How do you find the agent, or what's your structure, and how do you plan to exit and sell the property? And then after you sell the property, things you can do to continue to snowball that from a planning perspective. That's going to be coming out this first quarter of this year. Very excited, so stay tuned. 3 principles that are key to me. Number 1, when starting, I call this grind out and find out. This is one of the most important principles, and whether you are a crisp organization after 10, 20 years, or you're just jumping off, grind out and find out is like my core principle guiding me all the time. And what grind out and find out is action over planning. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have processes in place that you think about. You shouldn't have goals for the future. You shouldn't plan for what your outcome will be on any given project, on any given time frame. But it all means nothing if you don't take massive action. Everything requires action, and that action forces things to fall into place. I've seen so many people over the years, and I've fallen into this trap as well, that get into this analysis paralysis loop where you can plan yourself to death from every possible angle and you never take action. So you'll never get results if you don't take action, because nothing ever starts, nothing ever begins. I see this whether it's, starting a new company and trying to plan on, this is how I'm going to advertise, and this is the clients I'm going to get, and how am I going to make X amount of money? Let me try to pro forma that to death, and or plot that out on a spreadsheet to death, how that's going to happen. What are my contingency plans if X, Y, Z happens? And then what are my contingency plans for my contingency plans if this doesn't go this way and that goes this way? And then what are my contingency to the contingency to the contingency? And let me plan. And oh my gosh, I've planned all of this, and it's now 3 pages long, and it's stressing me out, and I'm not sure it's going to work because look at all the shit that can go wrong. But I've taken 0 action. This is all just theoretical in my head. And the reality is, action always produces a result. And typically, if that action is forthright and that action comes from a place of competency, which I would hope it would, the results are going to be positive. And as you get results, you can plan accordingly, because things will start to fall into place and make themselves clear what kinks need to be worked out, what you need to do to progress, maybe some processes that need to form to support the action. But none of it happens with pure planning and 0 action. Grind out and find out is my key principle. Actions over planning, and especially in the initial phases, you have to jump off and have faith that things are going to work out. And with massive action, they tend to work out. it's kind of funny that they say luck favors the bold. Well, there's a reason. Because the bold take risks and take action. And luck just seems to luck is attracted to those people and to that mentality. So grind out and find out and create your own luck is my number one guiding principle. And the massive action is the key point. Massive action. Number 2, get on the train. If there's anything that's just such a key point and that I want to implore you and beat into your head to understand, get on the train. You have to start somewhere to make progress. And I learned this, I was always a massive action, but a lot of times I would avoid specific aspects that I didn't think were my strong points, either in my business or in real estate development, because they weren't my core competencies and what I was comfortable with. But oftentimes you have to get on the train that you're uncomfortable with, or if you want to learn something new or you want to do something new, getting on the progress train and diving in is key to that first step in getting better at anything. I learned this, I relate this, I've mentioned in past podcasts that I like to play piano. Piano really opened my eyes to this concept, and it's helped me in business a lot. I specifically had a piano teacher that beat into my head the baby steps and the simple, silly things needed to progress and get better. And it really formed my basis for this second key point. When I'll relate this to the piano, when you're playing the piano and you've never played before, oftentimes you'll start by learning simple scales. And when you're learning these simple scales, there's so much behind them and how they relate to the piano and music and the key signature you're in and how that ties into what you're playing. But you don't understand that in the beginning. All you know is if I'm in the key of C, these 8 keys are my scale that comprise the key of C. And beyond that, a lot is unknown. You could easily go down this vortex of, but what does that mean? And what does that lead me to? Why am I learning this? But you bang away anyway, and you just ingrain these things into you. And eventually, as you progress and learn more, and then as you start to take that and from that scale that you've learned, dissect it a little further and say, oh, within this scale there's chords, and within this scale there's different variations, major, minor, augmented, this, that, or the other. You progress and you start to learn these things. And as you learn these things, a lot of them don't connect in your head. I've talked about connecting the dots in your last episode. Until they do. And you have these key insight moments where you say, oh, all this nonsense that I've been doing that doesn't really make much sense to me on Thursday, somehow I went to bed on Thursday, woke up on Friday with an aha light bulb that went off in my head that said, oh, this progression connects to this, and now I understand, and now that's locked in my cortex, and I get it. And that's a key point in business as well. When you start, you're not going to understand every single thing that needs to happen from a branding perspective, from a marketing perspective, from a sales perspective, from an operations perspective, from HR perspective, dealing with employees. That goes back to the grind out and find out, action over planning. The get on the train is such a key point complementing that. You'll form these processes and you will form the connection and how important they are to your business as you progress. But if you don't get on the train and start, you won't. You can't look, oftentimes people look to these large companies that have really tight processes and are doing large scale projects as the muse for what they want their company to be. But they want their company, or they want their process, or they want, what they're doing with development, whatever it may be, to model that. But they want it to model that day one. What they don't see is the 15 or 20 years that company put in to get to the point where they have those processes. Nobody starts with that level of organization, that level of process, and that level of synchronicity. You have to start, you have to grind out, and you have to get on the train and implement those things as you go, and implement those things as you figure out what it is that's unique to you, that you need in your business to help strengthen your mission. So that's the get on the train. Get on. Do the little things that might not make sense. They'll start connecting and you'll figure out what it is you need to take the next step. And there'll be little Lego building blocks of, I got on the train and I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that the path forward was forward, not left, right, around in a circle and backwards. And because I was doing that, starting from here, I was able to build to a point where it made sense that the next key hire I need is this person to help me in the field, so I can then keep my sales funnel a little more full and keep business coming in, which then led me to be aware that I needed someone in the office to help support me on the estimating and accounting side, because I'm busy selling and I have my crew busy in the field, which led me to think, well, now I have a lot going on in the field. I need to get involved in the macro operations, and maybe I should let someone take over the sales role. And like little by little did you know, you were building that tight organization like the companies you aspire to be. This is how it happens. You have to get on the train, and you have to have a little bit of blind faith in what you're doing. Number 1, grind out and find out. Number 2, get on the train. Last, I didn't put this last because it's not as important. This may be the most important of the 3 points. And whether it's a business plan, whether it's your pro forma for a real estate transaction you're looking at, or maybe just general high-level goals for the year in planning for your business. Number 3 may be the most important, and it is truly a tenet that I live my life by. It was something that was not taught to me, but mentioned to me in passing by someone I really respect early on in my career, and it stuck in my head, and it never left. And if I tell you, I can't explain enough how important this is and how it is my guiding principle. It's called Too Stupid to Fail. And Too Stupid to Fail can be boiled down to this. If whatever you're planning to do, whatever goals you have, whatever numbers you're jotting down to see if a real estate deal makes sense, if you can't take a pen and a sticky note and write on that sticky note the details, the specs, the plan, so it can be easily comprehended and it makes sense on a sticky note. If it doesn't make sense on a sticky note, it's not going to make sense in real life. I'll use the example in real estate. I can't tell you how many pro formas, and if you don't know what a pro forma is, it's essentially a spreadsheet breaking down the plan, the transaction, and the future projected profits. I've talked about this in past episodes, but I'll go over it again quickly. It could be a pro forma could be your real estate transaction is, this is my acquisition cost as one cell in the spreadsheet. This is then my cost, my soft costs for planning, permits, etc. Here's all my construction cost breakdown. This is what I'm paying for the money that I'm financing in interest. This is my bottom line. And that's how simple a real estate transaction pro forma can be on a spreadsheet. Acquisition, soft costs, construction, finance, eventual sale. Where does that leave me? I can't tell you how many times I have seen a 2 or 3 page spreadsheet breaking down a new construction build out, spec build, that has probably 100 categories, from finance breakdowns with depreciation and some kind of incentives on a month-to-month basis if you finish by this month and that month, and then in the construction and construction dependencies with other contingencies, and if the construction does this, then that, and if that, then this, and if that, then that, then this, then that, then that, and that and this dependency tied to that. And next thing you know, you have all these arbitrary numbers on a spreadsheet leading to some bottom line. If I'm ever approached with a deal with that level of detail in the pro forma, it scares the shit out of me, because it's not that complex. It always breaks down to me to macro level on a sticky note. Does it make sense? And this is something that can be done if you're starting your business, macro level. I'm Mike the tile guy and I want to start a tile company. Okay, macro level on your sticky note. Let's jot down, how much money do you have? How much money do you need a month? How much would you have to sell and work to make that much money, or more than you're currently making? What does that look like from an operational perspective? How much is that going to cost you to go out on your own? Can you do that? What's your estimated profits if you do? That's 5 line items. Sticky note. Mike, does this make sense? Okay. Well, then why don't you take that sticky note, stick it to your forehead, go grind out and find out and get on the train. They all tie together, you see? Real estate transaction. Again, I literally approach every real estate transaction like this, with a sticky note, with a postcard. If I don't have that, sometimes it's an 8x11 and I'll write big. But how much am I getting the deal for? Okay. How much is it going to cost me to get permits? Done. How much will the construction cost me? I've done it a long time. I generally know a range, and I'll go on the high side just to make sure I'm covered. How much is the money I'm financing to do the construction or to buy the deal costing me? That's a simple calculation. Am I getting the house for $1 million? Am I putting $1 million in construction? If I'm getting $2 million, I need to borrow $1.8 million, and I'm borrowing that for 1 year at 10%. The money cost me $180,000. Not crazy. That's a line item. When I sell, how much are my realtor fees? 5% with realtor fees and cost? Check, that's a line item. Cost of acquisition, cost to get a permit and soft costs, construction, finance, realtor. Add those up, that's my bottom line. That tells me what my potential profit can be. That is 6 line items on a sticky note. And anything beyond that is fluff, typically, that you're trying to make a deal look better than it is. You break it down to the core principle, you put it on a sticky note, you can't lose. So, these are my 3 guiding principles And I want you to really think about them, re-listen to the podcast, beat it into your head. There's many ways to skin the cat. These are my principles in skinning the cat. Grind out and find out. Be too stupid to fail. Put it on a sticky note. And get on the train. They all tie in together. I appreciate you. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend.